Hello friends, vinyl community, music lovers, Wes here checking in again with another episode of the Vinyl Survivor. This is where we take 5 new records, give them a listen, and let you know what I thought of them. So let's go ahead and get into this batch of records. First thing we have here is actually a compilation. This is a Cher compilation. The first of 2 compilations that were released in the early 70s. I believe this was released around 72. And this is just called, they just called these Super Pack. And they were both 2 LP sets, and they featured Cher's recordings from the 1960s. This is the first volume, and it featured recordings of Cher from around 65 to 68. You got things on here, a lot of covers on here, like she does a cover of "Blown in the Wind," "Needles and Pins," which is Sonny Bono's song. Sonny Bono wrote that song. It was a good song. I really like. "Bang Bang" is one of my favorite Cher songs of all time, and this is an earlier version than I had heard before. I guess she re-recorded it in the 80s sometime. It's a little bit different version. "Homeward Bound," "Alfie," "Sunny," "Do You Believe in Magic." She does a Miriam Makeba cover of the Click song. Really interesting compilation of just early Cher work. I'm not real familiar with Cher's recording history, but it was cool to hear sort of a collection of her songs. I'm not a real big Cher fan, but I enjoyed this, so I'm going to be putting this in the collection. Let's go ahead and show you. This is actually, as you can see, this has stickers and stuff all over it. This was actually from a library. Yeah, I can't really tell what library it was from, and I don't remember where I found this particular one. I think maybe it would be on here. Okay, this was actually from the United States Air Force, Charleston Air Force Base library. So it was an Air Force library record. But anyway, this was on the United Artists label, the Tan UA label from the early 70s. These play pretty well, for a library record. This one has survived pretty well. The jacket is pretty well thrashed, but the records themselves survived quite well. Maybe being in an Air Force base, it didn't get checked out very much. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing some of these early recordings of hers, and I will be adding this into the collection and keeping an eye out for a better copy. Okay, next up we have an album from 1977. This is Peter Frampton, "I'm In You." His follow-up to the Frampton Comes Alive album, so probably one of the greatest selling albums of all time, and a live album. And this was his first time going into the studio to record new work for quite a few years, so his style had changed quite a bit since the material that was featured on Frampton Comes Alive, and he found it really tough to record this album, but went ahead and made this album, and it sold quite well. Of course, it was not as popular as Frampton Comes Alive, but it's a good album. It's pop rock. It's Peter Frampton. It's a little more poppy. It's late 70s. But there's some really good songs on here. The title track is good. "You Don't Have to Worry." There's a cover of "Signed, Sealed, and Delivered," "I'm Yours," on here that's pretty good. Here is the inner sleeve. Got some photos on it and some notes on the back. And this is actually a white label promo copy of the album. I should have shown this in Dr. Deadwax's white label promo thread, but this one wasn't in the collection yet at the time, so I didn't have it in my spreadsheet marked as a white label promo, but that will be done in the future, so I know that I have a white label promo copy of this. And yeah, just a good Peter Frampton album. Like I said, very different from the Frampton Comes Alive kind of material, but maybe a little softer, a little more poppy, but enjoyable music. And yeah, looking at this cover, I wasn't expecting to like this, but the sample for DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince's "Parents Just Don't Understand" comes off of this album. So that's a cool little tidbit. It was just sped up a little bit, but you can once the song starts playing, you can instantly hear that bass line, and you know what that is. So yeah, this one will be going into the collection. I enjoyed it, and I actually bought this specifically to have that sample, that DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince sample, and the rest of the album is good too. Okay, next up we have another compilation. If you've ever looked at the inner sleeve of a Warner Brothers record in the past, that's from the the early '70s sometime, probably saw this on the inner sleeve. They had these compilations that you could send in $2, send in $2 and get these 2 LP sets of music. This is one of them. I believe this is the third one that they released. This is called The Big Ball. And so this is one of the ones that I don't think they sold these in stores at all. You had to do these through mail order. Got some pages in here describing each of the artists and their songs, and this one just has some amazing artists and songs on here. You got everybody from Neil Young to Frank Zappa, Fleetwood Mac, Pentangle, Jethro Tull, The Kinks, Everly Brothers, Tim Buckley, Joni Mitchell, Gordon Lightfoot, Randy Newman, the GTOs, Captain Beefheart, the Beach Boys, John Sebastian, Arlo Guthrie, Eric Anderson, Norman Greenbaum, Grateful Dead, Pearls Before Swine. It just goes on and on and on, and just some really cool, interesting tracks that I hadn't heard before. I think some of these may be only available on this particular piece of album, I guess you could say, compilation. Pull this out here. This is on the Warner Brothers green label. Nice set, and yeah, as I said, a really interesting compilation. A lot of different great artists on here, and it was one of those things that you could get in the '70s that was actually it was a promotional item, but it was actually something good. It wasn't just a bunch of junk that you didn't want to hear. The artists that they picked on here are artists that are still well known today. So obviously they did a good job with that. So this one is, it is somewhat rough. The cover is splitting at the top here, but I hope to find at least a better sleeve for this at some point in the future. But this is going into the collection for sure. Just a cool compilation. A lot of great tracks and a lot of great artists on here. Very, very fun listen. Okay, next up we have an album from 1982. This is America's View from the Ground. So sort of a later America album. This features the hit song You Can Do Magic, which was a huge song, still gets played on light rock radio today. Overall, this album was somewhat of a letdown to me. It was just kind of bored me a bit. It sort of has that sound as You Can Do Magic, and just it's not my kind of thing. It's not something I would pull out to actually listen to. So this one is not going to be going into the collection. I'll go ahead and show you. 80s vinyl, so it's pretty cheaply done. There's no kind of inner sleeve or anything. This is on the Capitol purple label. Nothing at all on the dead wax. It has 1A stampers on both sides, so this is probably a first pressing of this. But yeah, this was just a little too soft and just not that interesting to me musically or lyrically or anything, so not going in the collection. Okay, and the last album we have to talk about today is the soundtrack to Thunderball from 1965, James Bond soundtrack by John Barry, of course. Classic James Bond movie, classic album. Features the title track sung by Tom Jones. John Barry originally wanted Shirley Bassey to repeat her role as the title singer after she did Goldfinger. Just wanted to have her sing Thunderball as well. Production studio decided they wanted somebody else to do it, and they got Tom Jones to do it. He did a pretty good job with it. It's definitely a memorable title track and one that did well for them. Interesting to note that this soundtrack only features music that was in the first half of the film. John Barry was very late in finishing the soundtrack for the movie. Didn't finish it in the rest of the soundtrack in time to be featured on this actual soundtrack. So the songs on here are only from the first part of the movie, and Thunderball itself is featured on here twice, just to make up some room, I guess, fill up space. So this is a little bit lacking as a soundtrack, but it's good, and it gives you an overall feel of the music, and I do really like the sort of energy and the action, fast-paced action feeling of the music, and it's a really good score, and I really really enjoy having this. This one came from the library sale, has a green sticker on it. I believe green is 75 cents. So this is a really nice, perfect copy of this. I won't have to update this or anything. This is on a cool United Artists label, 1AE stampers, so pretty early, I guess. And yeah, just a cool addition to the collection. I pick up James Bond soundtracks whenever I see them. I'm trying to collect as many of them as possible. And this is another one that is going to be going in the collection. Actually, these underwater scenes here for Thunderball were filmed at Silver Springs, which is just about 45 minutes south of me here in Gainesville. A lot of Hollywood movies and TV shows, especially in the sort of early part of the 20th century, were filmed under any kind of underwater action scenes were filmed there, and it's a cool little park. It's been sort of a theme park for a while, and the state just recently bought it, and they're going to turn it into a state park. So it's kind of changing hands now and changing the direction of the way things are going. Hopefully the state runs it well and keeps it up. But yeah, just a cool soundtrack, cool James Bond soundtrack. So that's 5 new albums. 4 of them made it in the collection. 1 did not. I want to thank you for watching another episode of The Vinyl Survivor. If you like this video, please subscribe. That lets me know you like what I'm doing, and you will be notified when I do more of these. And thanks again, and we'll see you again real soon. Cheers.